I was clutching my glass of Chardonnay so tightly I was sure my fingers would leave marks in the crystal. My husband, Dan, was talking to some important clients from a tech firm. I tried to listen, nodding and smiling whenever I was expected to, but my focus kept drifting. And, no, it wasn't because of the free-flowing wine or the grandiose chandeliers overhead. It was his mom. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are listening. Your support means everything. I had known it wasn't going to be a normal office party when his mom showed up in that tight red dress and stiletto heels, her blonde curls perfectly styled and her smile just a little too bright. The way she scanned the room, seeking out people who mattered, made me cringe. But I could handle her. I had dealt with worse. What I didn't expect was for her to drop a bombshell right in the middle of the cocktail hour. It started innocently enough. Dan had introduced me to his new intern, Heather, a girl in her early 20s with soft brown eyes and hair that fell in perfect waves around her shoulders. She was pretty too pretty, if you ask me, but she was polite and professional, which I appreciated. For a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd be the kind of intern who kept her head down, did her work, and never stirred the pot. I couldn't have been more wrong. As we chatted, I noticed Heather seemed to be leaning in a little too close to Dan. She was laughing at his jokes a little too much, touching his arm a little too casually. I brushed it off. She was young, maybe just nervous. Maybe I was being paranoid. But then, my mother-in-law walked over, with that glint in her eye that always meant she was about to stir some trouble. I wasn't exactly her favorite person, mostly because I'd married Dan without waiting for her approval and had the audacity to not bend over backward to please her. I stood there, trying to maintain my composure, as she greeted Heather with a wide smile. "Oh, Heather. It's so nice to finally meet you," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. Heather smiled, blushing. "It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Martin. Please, call me Diane," she insisted, flashing me a look. "Now, I've heard so much about you, dear. Dan speaks so highly of you." Diane's gaze slid over to me, a hint of something sharp in her expression. I stiffened, my hand gripping my glass even tighter. Heather's face lit up at the mention of Dan. "I'm just trying to learn from the best." "Oh, don't be modest," Diane said, her smile widening. "You're going to be so much more than just an intern. You're practically his future wife at this point." I froze. The air around me seemed to suck out, and my heart skipped a beat. Did I hear that right? Dan had just turned back to join the conversation, oblivious to what had been said, and Heather seemed to blush even harder, her eyes darting between my mother-in-law and me. I was trying to keep my face neutral, trying to smile and pretend it was nothing, but Diane wasn't done. She went on, completely unaware of the icy tension that had settled between us. "You know," she continued, "Dan's always had a way of attracting amazing people. He's smart, ambitious, and charming. And he knows how to pick the right woman for the job. You two are going to make the most perfect power couple, I just know it." Dan finally looked over at us, his face lighting up in that easy, charming smile. "What's going on over here?" I didn't know if I wanted to laugh or cry. This wasn't the first time Diane had made some comments about my relationship with Dan. She'd made it clear that she wasn't exactly thrilled that I wasn't a suitable match for her precious son, mostly because I didn't come from the right background or wear the right clothes. But this was something else. She was practically offering up Heather as some kind of replacement. Before I could stop myself, the words came tumbling out. "What exactly are you saying, Mom?" I could hear the edge in my voice, but at that moment, I didn't care. "That Heather's going to be Dan's future wife. Because, I'm sorry, but last time I checked, I'm still the one he's married to." The room fell silent for a moment, and I could feel all eyes on me. I wasn't sure if I should backpedal, apologize, or just leave, but Heather's face had gone pale. She stepped back slightly, looking like she'd just realized she'd stumbled into a battlefield. Dan's face immediately changed. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping closer. His voice was calm, but there was tension in it. "Why are we all standing here like this?" I couldn't stop myself. "Maybe you should ask your mother," I shot back, voice tight. "She seems to think your intern is your future wife." Dan's eyes widened, and the color drained from his face. He turned to his mom, his jaw setting in that way that made him look so much like his father. "Mom," he said slowly, clearly trying to keep his voice level. What the hell did you just say? Diane blinked, clearly flustered. I didn't mean it like that, she stammered. I was just joking. I didn't mean to cause any trouble, but it was too late. The damage had been done. I could see Dan struggling with how to respond, his eyes flickering between his mother and me. He hated confrontation, especially with his family, but I wasn't about to let this slide. Not when I'd been put in a position where I was made to feel like I was the outsider in my own marriage. You don't get to talk about Heather like that, I said, my voice low but firm. And you don't get to make me feel like I'm somehow not good enough for your son. Diane's face flushed bright red, and she opened her mouth to protest, but Dan cut her off. Enough, Mom. Just stop. The tension in the air was palpable. Diane glared at me, but I held her gaze, unwilling to back down. I'm sorry, I don't know what I was thinking, Diane finally muttered, clearly embarrassed. It was a stupid comment. Dan turned to Heather, who was standing awkwardly in the corner. You're not. None of that was meant for you, he said quickly, giving her a strained smile. I'm sorry for how things went down. Heather nodded, clearly still unsure of what to say. It's okay, she murmured, though she didn't sound convinced. The rest of the night was a blur. The party had gone from glitzy and glamorous to awkward and tense, and by the time we left, Dan and I barely spoke. He was upset with his mom for what she'd said, but there was this underlying discomfort between us now, a distance that hadn't been there before. When we got back to our apartment, I was still furious. I was beyond angry at Diane's comments, but I was also hurt by how easily she had dismissed me and how her words had cut me deep. Dan tried to explain, but I wasn't hearing any of it. You don't get it, do you? I snapped. You're so focused on protecting your mom, you didn't even see how she was trying to undermine me. Do you have any idea how that made me feel? He paused, looking conflicted. I know. I should have stepped in sooner. No, Dan, I said, my voice shaking. You should have stepped in at all. The next day, Dan called Heather into his office. He wasn't about to let the situation go without addressing it, and I could tell he was just as pissed at his mom as I was. But when it was all said and done, it became clear that Heather wasn't interested in being a part of any drama. She was young, ambitious, and completely focused on her career. And I honestly respected her for that. As for Diane, she apologized a few times in the following days, but things were never quite the same. She learned to keep her comments to herself when it came to me and Dan. And I made it clear that if she couldn't respect me, then she didn't have a place in our lives. In the end, I think we both learned something. Sometimes, you have to fight for your relationship not just with the people closest to you, but for the respect you deserve. Dan and I have since had a lot more honest conversations, and I like to think our marriage is stronger for it. But that party, I'll never forget the way everything changed in a single moment just because of one careless remark.